Life had its own simple way for me. My name is Julie, and at 35, you would find me in the local library. It wasn't exciting, but it was my place. The books were my friends, and the dusty shelves were where I felt at home. I liked staying out of the spotlight and being in the background. I lived in a small town where everyone knew each other's business. My days were mostly the same: wake up, go to work, and then back to my small apartment. It was filled with used furniture and lots of books. I didn't really go out much, and that was okay with me, or at least that's what I told myself. Then Jack walked into my life. It was a day like any other. He wanted a book, something different, he said. He had a friendly smile and a warm voice that felt like sunshine on a cloudy day. "Hey, could you help me find a book? I'm feeling adventurous," he said, smiling with his eyes. "Sure, what type of book are you looking for?" I asked, adjusting my glasses and trying not to stare at him too much. "I don't know, surprise me," he answered, smiling in a way that showed he liked this small challenge. That was the start of everything. We began talking more and more. At first, it was about books, but then we started talking about our lives. Jack was different. He really listened, making me feel heard for the first time in a while. One day, he came in with a determined look. "You know, Julie, you're the most interesting person I've met here." "Why do you hide in here all day?" he asked, leaning on the counter with a playful look in his eyes. I laughed, a sound that felt odd to me. "Where else would I go? This town isn't exactly full of excitement," I said. Jack quickly replied, "Maybe you just need someone to explore it with. How about dinner tonight, my treat?" I hesitated, not used to this kind of attention. "I don't know, Jack." "Come on, what's the worst that could happen? You spend an evening out with a guy who enjoys your book recommendations. Plus, I promise to make it worth your while. You can show me this hidden gem of a town," he encouraged, his confidence catching. Against my better judgment, I agreed. "Okay, sure, but no fancy places. I don't like all that fuss," I said. Jack smiled brightly. "I'll pick you up at 9. Wear something comfortable." That night changed everything. Jack showed me parts of the town I'd never noticed, even though I've lived here all my life. He made me laugh, a real, deep laugh that I didn't know I could. He listened to my stories, my dreams, and my fears, never making me feel unimportant. As we walked back to my apartment, he stopped and looked at me seriously. "Julie, I know we've only just met, but there's something about you. You're genuine, and in a world full of fakes, that's rare." I didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to me like that before. "Jack, he cut me off, gently placing a finger on my lips. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that I see you, Julie. I see who you are, and I like what I see." Jack was always the best part of my day, making everything brighter with his care. He made me feel seen, calling me beautiful, kind, and smart things I hardly believed about myself. His warmth made the idea of forever not just possible, but desirable. When he proposed, it felt like a dream. "Marry me, Julie." "I can't imagine my life without you," he said, his eyes sincere. I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said, feeling excited and a bit shocked. But before we got caught up in wedding planning, there was one important step: we had to meet his parents. Jack had warned me, "My folks have high standards for who I bring home, but don't worry. They're going to love you once they see how amazing you are." Though his words were meant to comfort me, my nerves were still there. I was very nervous before meeting Jack's parents. I searched my closet for something simple but nice to wear, but it felt like a difficult task. Jack, on the other hand, was completely relaxed. He seemed almost uninterested, as if he wasn't worried at all about how the meeting would go. "You're overthinking it, Julie. Just wear what you're comfortable in," he told me casually, which only made me more nervous. When the day came, I chose a simple blue dress, hoping it was the right choice. As we drove to his parents' house, Jack seemed more interested in the music on the radio than in the meeting. "You sure they're going to like me?" I asked him, looking for some reassurance. They'll come around. Just be yourself, he replied, not really paying attention. I was anxious as we walked up to the door of Jack's childhood home. I remembered his warnings and felt scared about what was coming. When the door opened, Jack's parents were hard to read. The dare that followed felt like a test. They asked me many questions, making it feel more like an interrogation than a casual conversation. So, Julie, Jack tells us you work at a library. Do you see yourself doing that long-term? His father asked, sounding like he didn't think much of my job. I tried to answer confidently. I love working there. It's fulfilling in a way I can't quite describe, I said, hoping my passion would impress them. Jack was unusually quiet the whole time, offering little help as I dealt with their tough questions and subtle criticisms. It felt like I was fighting a battle alone, with Jack just watching. On the drive home, the car was silent. I was not only upset about how the evening went, but also disappointed in Jack's lack of support. I thought you said they'd warm up to me, I said, my voice filled with hurt. Jack just shrugged, which frustrated me. Give it time, Julie. They just need to get to know you better, he said, but his words didn't really comfort me. After a few more dinners that felt just as uncomfortable, it was clear Jack's parents didn't like me much. They seemed to think I was after their money, which was not true at all. I was never interested in Jack's money. In fact, I barely knew about it until he mentioned it one day, saying his parents are a bit old-fashioned, worrying about money and status. One night, Jack came home looking serious. "Babe, we need to talk," he said, avoiding my eyes. I felt a knot in my stomach. "What's wrong?" I asked. "It's my parents," he started, finally looking at me. "They're insisting we sign a prenup." The word felt strange and bitter. "Jack, you know I don't care about your money, right?" He sighed, running his hands through his hair. "I know, and I don't care about it either, not when it comes to us. But they're adamant. They think it'll protect both of us or something." I was hurt, I won't lie. It felt like they were expecting our relationship to fail. But I loved Jack more than I cared about his parents' approval or some silly agreement. "Fine," I said, sharper than I meant to. "Let's sign it and be done with it. Your money, my money, whatever. I don't care. I just want you." Jack looked relieved, and part of me hated that he felt that way. "Thank you, babe. I hate this as much as you do. It's just a piece of paper. It won't change anything between us." So we signed the thing. Some lawyer his parents knew drew it up, making sure neither of us could touch the other's stuff if things went bad. It felt like signing a declaration of distrust before we even began, but I pushed those thoughts away. I was in love, and love was supposed to conquer all, right? Our wedding was simple, just how I wanted it, just a few close friends, an intimate ceremony, and the promise of forever. I moved into Jack's place shortly after. It was a nice house, nothing too fancy, but it felt a world away from my old apartment. Jack's parents lived nearby, which meant surprise visits that seemed more like inspections. Life with Jack started like a fairy tale, but it didn't take long for the shine to wear off, showing the harsh reality underneath. The change didn't happen overnight, but the signs slowly crept in, eroding what we had built. His mother, Megan, was the first crack in our perfect picture. She dropped by unannounced, scanning the house as if taking inventory. "Remember, this is Jack's house. Everything here is his," she reminded me. I kept my cool, replying, "I'm all aware, Megan. I'm not here for your son's things." "I love him," I said, but she just scoffed. "Love doesn't pay the bills, dear. Just remember, if you ever leave, you leave with what you came with, nothing." One day, she walked around the house pointing out everything. "See this couch? It's Jack's. That painting, also Jack's. Remember, dear, in case things go bad, you have no claim over any of it," she told me with a nasty kind of sweetness in her voice. It seemed like she enjoyed reminding me of my place in their world. Jack's father, Alexander, wasn't any better. He and Megan acted like they owned our house, not just visiting. They demanded coffee the moment they walked in, criticized how I made it too weak or too strong, and then sat in front of the TV, expecting me to serve them. "Grab us some chips, will you? And maybe wash those clothes piling up in the corner," Alexander would say without even looking at me. The worst part was that Jack never stood up for me. He'd laugh along with them, adding his own comments. "Yeah, she's still learning how to do things right around here. Give her time." I felt like I was losing my mind. This wasn't the man I married. This was someone else, someone cruel and dismissive. "Do you even hear yourself? How can you let them treat me like this?" I'd confront Jack after his parents left. "Babe, they're just set in their ways. You know how old people are," he'd say, shrugging it off as if I was the one overreacting. "They don't mean anything by it. Plus, you know we're on their dime. Can't bite the hand that feeds, right?" That line hit me like a slap in the face. So that was it. I was just the freeloader. The girl who married into their little empire and had to play by their rules or get out. My job at the library, which I loved, was a joke to them, just another reason for them to look down on me. The days all blurred together, each one just like the last, until that unremarkable Tuesday when everything changed. I was at work, shelving books when I felt a sharp pain in my stomach, doubling me over. It wasn't just stress. It was something more, something worse. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my nostrils. Lying in that hospital bed, I couldn't help but think how this was a new low, alone, in pain, and not a single message or call from Jack. When I thought things couldn't get any worse, there was a knock at the door. A man I never expected was standing there. He wore a suit and held a briefcase, looking completely out of place in my sterile hospital room. "Are you Julie Bowen?" he asked. "Yes, that's me. Who are you?" I replied, my voice weak and tired from the pain and constant letdowns. "I'm Scott Atkins, a notary." "I have something important to discuss with you," he said. His tone was formal, but there was something in his eyes that made me want to listen. I nodded for him to continue, curious despite everything. "It's about your great-uncle, Brandon Sanderson. He recently passed away, and you are his only heir, Julie. He left you inheritance." His words didn't make sense at first. "Are you sure you have the right person?" "I haven't seen him for 18 years, I said. Scott nodded. "Quite sure. He was a private man, but he always remembered you and wanted to make sure you were taken care of." Lying in the hospital bed, feeling a mix of confusion and excitement, I watched as the notary got ready to explain my great-uncle's will. He cleared his throat, opened his briefcase, and spread out the documents in front of him. "Julie, your great-uncle was a wealthy man with fine taste. He left you a significant inheritance. We're not just talking about money here, though there's plenty of that. $40 million, to be exact," Scott began, his voice calm and factual. $40 million? I repeated, my voice cracking. "That's right," he continued, unfazed by my shock. "But there's more. You're also inheriting shares in several large companies. These are not small investments. We're talking about major stakes in some of the most stable and profitable companies out there." My mind raced, trying to grasp the enormity of what he was saying. Owning parts of companies I had only heard about on the news seemed like a fantasy. "And there's property," Scott went on, flipping through the papers. "An old large house in one of the most prestigious areas. It's not just any house, Julie. It's a mansion with history, acres of land, and it's all yours now." I tried to imagine the house, the kind of place I had only seen in movies. It was overwhelming, to say the least. "Don't forget about the antique car," he added with a slight smile, as if expecting my reaction. "A classic, fully restored, and in mint condition. It's a collector's dream." I laughed, feeling like this was all too strange. "An antique car too? What am I going to do with that?" "I barely drive as it is," I said. Scott's smile got bigger. "Well, it's yours to do with as you please. Maybe take it for a spin now and then." He continued, "And then there's the furniture and paintings inside the house. They're genuine antiques, some of them centuries old. Your great-uncle had a taste for fine things." The room seemed to shrink, and the air got heavier as I tried to understand everything he was saying. "So I've inherited a fortune, a company, a mansion, an antique car, and a collection of art and furniture. That's unbelievable. It's all yours, Julie? Your great-uncle wanted to make sure you were well taken care of. It seems he saw something special in you." Special? I felt anything but special, lying in a hospital bed after the worst few months of my life. Yet here I was, suddenly a multimillionaire, trusted with a legacy I didn't even know existed. "Thank you, Mr. Adkins. This is a lot to take in. I don't even know where to start," I admitted, feeling grateful, disbelief, and a huge sense of responsibility. "We'll take it one step at a time," he assured me. "I'm here to help you through the whole process." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Jack calling for the first time in days. Ignoring it, I turned back to Scott. "What happens now?" "We'll need to handle some paperwork, but the inheritance is yours. Your life is about to change, Julie, and change it did." After the unexpected windfall, Jack and his folks seemed to change their attitude. Their daily hospital visits felt like scenes from a cheesy movie. Jack, who hadn't bothered to check on me before, was now constantly by my side, fussing over my blanket with a worried look. "How are you feeling today, love?" he'd ask, his voice dripping with sweetness that didn't reach his eyes. His mother, Megan, was even more over the top, if possible. "Darling, I'm going to cook your favorite lasagna when you get back home. Just you wait," she said, her smile wide but not quite genuine. It was all too much, too sudden. Yet I played along, smiling weakly and thanking them for their care. But suspicion gnawed at me, urging me to look beyond their actions. So one day, after their routine visit, I gathered the strength to slip out of my bed and follow them. My heart pounded with every step as I hid behind a corner. I overheard them as they showed their true colors, not knowing I was listening. Their laughter was loud and harsh. "Can you believe how easy it is? She's terribly naive. She's completely fooled," Jack said, laughing. Megan, always planning, spoke with a sharp tone. "Make sure she has a baby with you, Jack. Once she does, she'll never be able to leave, and then we'll really have control over her and her fortune." Their cruel and cold words didn't shock me. I felt disappointed, yes, but not surprised. They had shown who they really were, and I was done pretending otherwise. Silently, I returned to my hospital bed, their mocking words igniting a determination within me. They saw me only as a way to secure their future, but I was done playing their game. Back at home after being discharged, I felt like a stranger in what was supposed to be my own place. Jack and his parents were there, pretending to be concerned. The air was tense with unspoken expectations. Jack broke the silence with a hint of sweetness, but mostly greed. "Babe, you're home. How are you feeling? We've been so worried about you." Ignoring the knot in my throat, I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm feeling better, thanks, but we need to talk." "All of us," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. Megan, ever the actress, stepped forward, her hands clasped as if praying. "Of course, dear, we're here for you, whatever you need." It was now or never. I took a deep breath and made my intentions clear. "I'm filing for divorce, Jack, and before you ask no, you won't see a dime of my inheritance." The room went silent, the atmosphere drained as if by a vacuum. Jack's face went pale, his facade slipping to reveal his panic. "Divorce? But why? I thought we were happy." "Happy?" The word tasted bitter. "You, your mom, and your dad have made my life miserable. You've treated me like a servant, not a wife. And now, suddenly, you're concerned about me because I have something you want." Jack struggled for words, but Megan quickly intervened. "This is nonsense. We've always treated you like family. You're imagining things, dear." I rolled my eyes, tired of their lives. I took out the prenuptial agreement from my bag and showed it to him. "This saved me. You thought you could fool me, but I'm not the naive girl you thought I was." Alexander, who had been silent until now, finally spoke with a mix of anger and defeat. "You'll regret this. We're your family." "No, you're never my family. A family doesn't treat someone like dirt and then become nice when money is involved. I'm done here." Moving into my own small and cozy apartment was a breath of fresh air I desperately needed. It wasn't just a new place to live. It was my declaration of independence, my fresh start. The phone calls started almost immediately. Jack, sounding desperate, was the first to call. "Julie, please, you've got to come back. We can work this out. I know we can." His pleas didn't affect me. "Jack, it's over. I'm not coming back." "You need to accept that," I said firmly, leaving no room for negotiation. Soon after, Megan called, her voice a toxic mix of anger and guilt-tripping. "Ungrateful, after everything we've done for you. You owe us, Julie. You're making a huge mistake." "Owe you for what, Megan? For making me feel like a burden? No, I don't owe you anything. Goodbye." Hanging up on her felt like shedding a heavy weight, a final cut from the ties that bound me to a life of misery. The divorce was a relief, a clean break from a past that had threatened to consume me. Through friends, I heard about the fallout between Jack and his parents. Ironically, the prenuptial agreement they had insisted on was now the source of their family strife. With my great-uncle's inheritance securely in my name, I found purpose and generosity. A significant portion went to charities that mattered to me, causes that would make a difference in the world. But it was the bookstore that became my passion project, a cozy haven for lovers of old and rare books. It was my way of reconnecting with the world on my terms. My journey hadn't been easy, fraught with challenges and hard decisions, but standing in my bookstore surrounded by the stories of countless others, I knew I had found my happy ending. It wasn't just about moving on from Jack and his family's manipulation. It was about rediscovering who I was and what I loved. Here's to new beginnings, I toasted to myself one quiet evening after closing up shop. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to travel, filled with possibilities and the promise